Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Hello dear students, welcome back to biology online class session. Today we are going to discuss split test 2 paper discussion. First we'll go with the botany questions. The chapter is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Let us start, students. The first question is, dioecious condition prevents, the first option is autogamy, second option is both autogamy and geitonogamy, third option is geitonogamy, and the fourth option is xenogamy. See, dioecious in the sense, so it is nothing but the male and the female reproductive organs are present in the separate individuals, right? So in dioecious plants, male and female flowers, they are born on different plants. So in such a condition, in a dioecious condition, so what the given here is dioecious condition prevents. So in dioecious plants, the flowers are born on different plants, right? The male and the female flowers are born on the different plants. So this will prevent autogamy. Autogamy anta helidre, it is nothing but self-pollination. That is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. That is nothing but self-pollination anta helthivi ನಾವು. So it doesn't require any pollinating agent, right? And the second option, they are given both autogamy and geitonogamy. Let me explain what is geitonogamy first. So geitonogamy is nothing but what? It is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the another flower born on the same plant. Okay. And xenogamy, there is no much difference between autogamy and geitonogamy. Genetically, geitonogamy is similar to autogamy only because the flowers are born on the same plant and they have a same genetic constitution. And xenogamy is a cross pollination. So here in dioecious condition, as male the flowers are born on different plants, no, so that require a pollinating agent. For pollination to takes place, that requires some pollinating agents, right? So that is nothing but xenogamy is a cross pollination. So in dioecious plants, for pollination to takes place, that require pollinating agents. Okay. So ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ dioecious condition prevents autogamy, both autogamy and geitonogamy and xenogamy. So autogamy and geitonogamy, dioecious condition prevents both autogamy and geitonogamy, and it favors xenogamy. Okay, because the plants and that is dioecious condition, no, the male and the female flowers are born on the different plant, so that will encourage, that is, it prevents autogamy and geitonogamy but favors xenogamy. So the right option here is the second one, both autogamy and geitonogamy. Then we will move on to the next question. The number of mitotic generations required to form a mature embryo sac in most of the flowering plants. Option 1, 2, 4 and 3. See, an embryo sac, it is nothing but a female gametophyte. So once the pollen tube enters into the synergy, so you know what are all the things which are present in the embryo sac. So that is a group of 3 cells that is called as egg apparatus, which is located at the micropolar end, and a group of 3 cells that is called as antipodous located at the chelazal end, and in the center having 2 polar nuclei. The center cell is having a 2 polar nuclei. So once the pollen tube enter into the that is egg synergid, so what happens? The pollen tube will releases the 2 male gametes. Okay. So that it will enter into the male gametes, and you know, the one fuses with the egg, that will form a zygote, and another male gamete fuses with the that is diploid secondary nucleus. So that will develop into a primary endosperm cell. So here the question is the number of mitotic generations to required to form a mature embryo sac alva. So mature embryo sac formation ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು mitotic divisions ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. So an embryo sac is an important thing in the ovule and it represents the female gametophyte. So it is a 7-celled 8 nucleate stage alva. So this embryo sac is developed from a megaspore. Okay, so which is formed by the megaspore mother cell through meiosis cell division. So that gives rise to that megaspore mother cell will undergo meiosis cell division and produces 4 megaspores. Out of 4 megaspores, only one functional megaspore will give rise to the embryo sac. So the remaining 3 will degenerate. The one functional megaspore that divides mitotically and produce 2 nuclei, and the 2 nuclei will move towards the opposite poles, and again that in turn undergo the 2 nuclei that will undergo further mitotic division to produce the 4 nucleate condition, and again these 4 nuclei will undergo again mitotic division and produce a 8 nucleate stage. Okay, so the number of mitotic generations required to form a mature embryo sac in most of the flowering plants is 3. How many mitotic generations are required? Eshtu mitotic generations ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ 3. Okay, so the option 4 is correct. Okay, then we'll move on to the next question. Which of the following is a parthenocarpic fruit? Option 1 apple, option 2 strawberry, option 3 banana, and option 4 is pomegranate. So parthenocarpate is nothing but what? It is the development of fruit without fertilization. Okay, so here the fruits are developed without fertilization. So these fruits are generally that is seedless fruits alva. So such fruits parthenocarpic fruits anta ಏನು ನಾವು ಕರಿತೀವಿ. So which are developed without fertilization. So such fruits are called as parthenocarpic fruits. Okay, so which of the following is a parthenocarpic fruit? The question. So among the 4, the parthenocarpic fruit, as I said, the parthenocarpic fruit is a seedless fruit. It is developed without fertilization. So the right option here is banana. So banana is among all the 4, banana is a parthenocarpic fruit. Okay, then we will move on to the next question. So here in this question the right option is third one, banana. Next question. Adventive polyembryony is common in. First option is wheat. Second option is orobanche. Third option is mango, and the fourth option is apple. So polyembryony. What is polyembryony? So polyembryony, it is nothing but a presence of more than one embryo in a seed. So that condition it is called as polyembryony anta heltare. So adventive polyembryony anta heladre, if the embryos are formed from the sporophytic cell, whether it is from a nucellus or from an integument, then it is called as adventive polyembryony. So among this, the adventive polyembryony is common in the mango. Okay, so the third option is correct. So adventive polyembryony is common among the 4. The right answer is mango. Adventive polyembryony is common in mango. Okay, then next question. Perispermic seeds are. The first option is maize, beet. Second option is barley, maize. Third option is castor and sunflower. The fourth option is black pepper and wheat. So perispermic seeds. So ಈಗ perispermic seeds anta heladre, in some seeds what happens, the nucellus the remnants of the nucellus will persist. Okay, so that persistent nucellus that is called as perisperm anta ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Persistent nucellus ಗೆ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ? Perisperm ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. And the seeds which are having the remains of nucellus are seen. So such seeds are called as perispermic seeds. Okay, so perispermic seeds anta ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ the seeds in which the remains of nucellus are seen. Such seeds are called as perispermic seeds. So such example for such a seeds. So they have given 4 options here, right? 4 options they have given here. First one is maize and wheat. Second one is barley and maize. Third one is castor and sunflower. Fourth is black pepper and wheat. Okay. So here among this the perispermic seeds are. So in seeds in these seeds the nucellus, the remnants of the nucellus persist. Okay. So example for such seeds include black pepper and wheat. So the fourth option is correct. Then we will move on to the next question. The sheath enclosing plumule and radicle respectively in a monocot seed are. The first option is aileron layer and pericarp. Second option is scutellum and epiblast. Third option is coleorhiza and coleoptile. And the fourth option is coleoptile and coleorhiza. So what is the question here? The sheath enclosing the plumule and the radicle respectively in monocot seed are. So the plumule is enclosed in a sheath that is called as coleoptile, and the radicle is enclosed in a sheath that is called as a coleorhiza. Okay, fourth option is correct. Then we will move on to the next question. The single cotyledon in monocots is. The first option is scutellum, which is centrally placed. Aileron layer, which is terminal in position. Third is scutellum, which is lateral in position. And the fourth option is epiblast, which is haploid and lateral in position. So the single cotyledon in monocots. So the monocot embryo is having a single cotyledon, that is called as scutellum. Okay, so that is placed at one side. So that is lateral to the embryonal axis. So the right option here is the single cotyledon in monocots is called a scutellum, which is lateral in position. Okay. So the question is the single cotyledon in monocots, it is called as what? A scutellum, and it is located in the lateral side of the embryonal axis. So the right answer here is scutellum, which is lateral in position. Then next question. X albuminous seeds are of wheat. First option they have given wheat, pea and groundnut. Second option they have given pea, groundnut and beans. Third option they have given castor, pea and groundnut. Fourth option they have given wheat, castor and rice. Okay. So X albuminous seed. So ಈಗ X albuminous seeds ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ you know that it's because of triple fusion the endosperm forms alva. That is triple fusion the primary endosperm nucleus forms. So that central cell after triple fusion it will become a primary endosperm cell. So that primary endosperm nucleus divide and gives rise and that will develop into an endosperm. Okay. So the cells of the endosperm that contains reserve food material. So they are mainly meant for nourishing the developing embryo. Okay. So what is the fate of the endosperm? So that contains the cells contains reserve food material. So that is mainly meant for nourishing that will provide nutrition to the developing embryo, right? So Here they are given X albuminous seeds. Okay, suppose if that endosperm is completely consumed during the development of the embryo. Okay, so during the development of the embryo, if that endosperm consumes completely, okay, before the seed matures, then those seeds are called as, the type of seeds are called as X albuminous seeds anta helthivi. And albuminous seeds anta ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, suppose if the endosperm remains in the mature seeds, then such seeds are called as albuminous seeds. So ಈಗ ನಾವು albuminous seeds ನಾವು ಯಾವುದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಬಹುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಈಗ ಮೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಬಹುದು, wheat, okay, castor, okay, are the example for albuminous seeds. So here they have given X albuminous seeds alva. So X albuminous seeds are of wheat, pea and groundnut. Here first option they are given wheat alla. Wheat is an example for albuminous seed. And second option is pea, groundnut and beans. All are X albuminous seeds only. Pea, groundnut and beans are X albuminous seeds. And in the third option they have given castor, pea and groundnut. Okay, so castor is an albuminous seed. And fourth option they have given wheat, castor and rice. All are an example for albuminous seeds, where some endosperm remains in the mature seeds. So the example for X albuminous seeds include, the second option is right here, that is pea, groundnut and beans are an example for X albuminous seeds. Okay, then we will move on to the next question. Double endosperm is found in. Double endosperm is found in the first option rice, second option is pea, third option is wheat, fourth option is coconut. So double endosperm, four option they have given ala, rice, pea, wheat and coconut. So the correct option is coconut, because in coconut it contains both free nuclear endosperm and cellular endosperm. So what that is coconut water which is present in the tender coconut too, that is free, that is nuclear endosperm. And the white kernel which surrounds that coconut water, no, that is called as cellular endosperm. So here free nuclear endosperm development, how it takes place. So the pen end formation agate primary endosperm nucleus. So that primary endosperm nucleus undergo successive nuclear divisions. So that results in many nuclei and finally wall formation takes place. Okay, so such is that is called as free nuclear endosperm development. But whereas in cellular endosperm development, the primary endosperm nucleus, no, that divides many times, and after every successive division the wall formation takes place. So that is called as that type of development is called as cellular endosperm development. So in coconut both are present, free nuclear endosperm, that is the coconut water in the tender coconut, and the cellular endosperm water, that is white kernel that surrounds it, no, that is called as cellular endosperm. So double endosperm is found in coconut. So the right option here is the fourth one, that is coconut. Okay, then we will move on to the next question. The diploid and triploid product of double fertilization respectively are. I'll tell you once again. The diploid and triploid product of double fertilization respectively are the embryo, and the first option they have given embryo and perisperm, second option they have given endosperm and cotyledons, the third option they have given zygote and the primary endosperm nucleus, and the fourth option they have given a zygote and the scutellum. Okay, so here the diploid and triploid products anta heladre. So double fertilization. So after double fertilization, the zygote and primary endosperm cell are formed, right? So as I said, an embryo sac, mature embryo sac is 7 celled and 8 nucleate stage. So as the pollen tube enters into the embryo sac, that is into the egg synergid. So it releases the two male gametes, and one of the male gamete fuses with the egg cell. Okay, so that results in a zygote, which is diploid. So the diploid product of double fertilization here is a zygote, and the remaining another male gamete, no, that will move towards the central cell. Okay, it will move towards the central cell and fuses with the two polar nuclei or the diploid secondary nucleus. So that results in a triploid condition that is called as primary endosperm nucleus. Okay, so the triploid structure form. So here one is syngamy takes place and another one is a triple fusion takes place alva. So thus it is called as what, double fertilization anta ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So the diploid and the triploid product of double fertilization respectively are the zygote. The diploid product is the zygote, okay, which is formed by the fusion of the male gamete with the egg cell, and the triploid product is the primary endosperm nucleus, which is formed by the fusion of the male gamete with the diploid secondary nucleus. Okay, so the right option here is the third one, that is zygote and primary endosperm nucleus. We'll move on to the next question. A typical angiosperm anther is dash and dash. It is tetralobed monosporangiate. It is bilobed bisporangiate. Third option is it is bilobed and monosporangiate. And the fourth one is bilobed and tetrasporangiate. So, a typical angiosperm anther is, so you know that the male reproductive wall of a flower is androecium that consists of stamens, right? The stamens each stamen it is having a filament, a long slender stalk, what we call it as a filament. The lower end of the filament it is attached to the thalamus, or else it is attached to the petals of a flower, and its terminal end is having a anther. So this anther it is generally a bilobe. Okay, generally it consists of two lobes. So the anther is bilobe, and each anther it is four-sided. Okay, and it consists of the four microsporangia at its corners. Okay, so that means each, there are how many lobes of anther are there? There are two lobes in each anther, and in each lobe there are two pollen sacs or two microsporangia which are developed in a longitudinal position. So each lobe is having two microsporangia, thus making it a total of how many microsporangia? Four microsporangia which develop at the corners. Okay, so a typical angiosperm anther is how many lobe? It is having two lobes, so it is bilobe. And how many microsporangia it has? Four microsporangia, right? So it is tetrasporangiate. So a typical angiosperm anther is bilobe and tetrasporangiate. So the right option here is the fourth one. Okay, then we'll move on to the next question. So the central cell after triple fusion becomes the PEC, primary endosperm cell, PEN, primary endosperm nucleus. The third option is embryo, and the fourth option is endosperm. So what is the question here? The central cell after triple fusion becomes, whether it become a PES or PEN or embryo or endosperm. So as I said, double fertilization occurs, no? So one is syngamy and another one is triple fusion. So as the male gametes are released by the pollen tube after its entry into the egg synergy, one male gamete fuses with the egg cell that results in the formation of a zygote. Okay, it is diploid, right? It is called as what? Syngamy. So another male gamete irattalva, so that will move towards the central cell. Okay, so there it fuses with the two polar nuclei. The central cell is having two polar nuclei, no? So it will fuses with the two polar nuclei, or else that is diploid secondary nucleus. So that results in the formation of primary endosperm nucleus. So thus a central cell after that process we call it as what? Triple fusion anta ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ? as the male gamete fuses with a two polar nuclei. That fusion it is called as triple fusion. Okay. So the central cell after the triple fusion, it will becomes what? It becomes a primary endosperm cell. Okay. After triple fusion, the central cell becomes a primary endosperm cell that will develop into an endosperm. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ question ಏನು ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರು? So the central cell after triple fusion becomes the ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So the right option is the central cell after triple fusion becomes primary endosperm cell. Okay, got it? Then we will move on to the next question. Examples for water pollinated flowers are, the first option they have given Potamogeton, Vallisneria, lotus. Second option is lotus, Vallisneria and hydrilla. Third option is Vallisneria, hydrilla and zostera. Fourth option is zostera, lotus and water lily. So you know that cross pollination, so that requires pollinating agents. Okay, so many things will brought about pollination like air, water, that is wind, water, and some animals also they are the good pollinating agents like insects and birds. Okay, so here examples for water pollinated flowers, that they have given 4 options. So in that all the 4 options, all the plants are aquatic plants only. But what happens in majority of the aquatic plants, the flowers emerge above the level of the water. Okay, so in such cases, the flowers get pollinated either by the insects or the wind. Okay, so here the first option they have given Potamogeton, Vallisneria and lotus. Potamogeton, it is a wind pollinated plant, and it's an aquatic plant only. It is pollinated by wind. And Vallisneria, water pollinated, and lotus is pollinated by beetles. And the second option they have given lotus. Again, lotus, it is pollinated by beetles. Vallisneria, it is by water pollination. Hydrilla, again water pollination. Third option they have given Vallisneria, hydrilla and zostera. So here Vallisneria and hydrilla, they are the freshwater plants. So they are pollinated by water only. And zostera, it is commonly called as seagrass anta heltare. It's a marine plant. Okay, it is also pollinated by water. Fourth option they are given zostera, pollinated by water. Lotus, again pollinated by beetles. Water lily, again by insects. So here they have given the examples for only water pollinated flowers. So among all the 4 options, the water pollinated flowers include Vallisneria, hydrilla and zostera. Okay, so among all these, the third option is correct. Vallisneria and hydrilla, zostera are the water pollinated flowers. We will move on to the next question. Production of seed without fertilization is called parthenocarpy, apomixis, parthenogenesis, apogamy. Okay. Production of seed without fertilization is called. 4 options they have given. One is parthenocarpy, second one is apomixis, the third one is parthenogenesis, and the fourth one is apogamy. So parthenocarpy, it is nothing but the development of fruit without fertilization, and parthenogenesis is the development of embryo by an unfertilized egg. Okay, apomixis anta helidre the production of seed without fertilization is called as apomixis. Usually seeds enide, seeds are the product of fertilization, right? But some plants have evolved to produce the seed without fertilization. Okay, so such a process of production of seed without fertilization is called as what? Apomixis. So the right option here is the second one, that is apomixis. We'll move on to the next question. Then next question is, Which of the following plant provides safe place to insect for laying eggs? The first option they have given Amorphophallus, the second option they have given mango, third is ophrys, and the fourth is sage plant. Okay. So you know that pollination. So pollination anta heladre, as I said, it is the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of a flower. So cross pollination requires pollinating agents. Okay. So animals also are good pollinate. They also act as a good pollinating agent. They brought about pollination. So among animals, insects anta naವೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, majority of the insects like honeybees, flies, okay, moth, butterflies, they are the good pollinating agents. Okay. So in turn, so they pollinate the flowers. In turn, they get reward from the plants. What type of rewards they get from the plants? Like they will get the nectar, okay, and they will get a food source. They will get the pollen from the plants, and also they get a suitable place to lay their eggs. So such kinds of rewards they get when they pollinate the plants. Okay, so here, which of the following plant provides a safe place to insect for laying the eggs? So correct option here is Amorphophallus. The flower, the height of the flower is much here, and it will provide a safe place to the insect to lay its eggs. Okay, the right option here is Amorphophallus. So the first option is correct. Then we'll move on to the next question. Geitonogamy is, first option, ecologically autogamous, second option is functionally autogamous, third option is genetically allogamous, and the fourth option is genetically autogamous. See, as I already said, geitonogamy, it is nothing but, so pollination andre ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ವಾ ನಿಮಗೆ, so it is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a flower. Okay, depending upon the pollen source, there are three types of pollination can be seen. The first is autogamy, self pollination anta heltivi. That is nothing but the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a same flower. That is called as autogamy, self pollination. Geitonogamy is the transfer of pollen grain from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower, but born on the same plant. Okay, so that is called as geitonogamy. Xenogamy refers to the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower born on the different plants. Okay, so that is nothing but cross pollination. That is called as xenogamy. So here the question is, geitonogamy is ecologically autogamous, functionally autogamous, genetically allogamous, and genetically autogamous. So geitonogamy, it is nothing but the transfer of pollen grain from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. No, so genetically, so it requires pollinating agent, because the pollen grains are transferred from one flower to the another flower, that requires pollinating agents. So functionally it is cross pollination, but genetically it is similar to autogamy anta helbodu. Why? Because the flowers are born on the same plant, right? So all of the flowers, they are having a same genetic constitution. Okay, so geitonogamy, it is similar to autogamy. Why? Because the flowers are born on the same plant, right? And all the flowers are having the same genetic constitution. So geitonogamy is genetically similar to autogamy, alva. So hagagi the right option here is geitonogamy is genetically autogamous. The right option here is genetically autogamous. So the fourth option is correct. Then we will move on to the next question. The number of embryo sac in an ovule is generally 3, many, 4, 1. So the number of embryo sac in a ovule is generally 4 options they have given. First option is 3, second is many, third is 4, and the fourth is 1, right? So embryo sac, it represents, it is the important part of a ovule, and it represents female gametophyte, right? And this embryo sac, it is developed from the functional megaspore, which in turn developed from the megaspore mother cell during megasporogenesis. Okay, so the embryo sac is developed from the functional megaspore by repeated mitotic division. So finally, a mature embryo sac is having 7-celled and 8 nucleate stage. Okay, so generally each ovule is having only one embryo sac. Okay, so what is the number of embryo sac in an ovule? That is 1. So the right option here is the fourth one. Right option is fourth one. Next question. Next question is, the nutritive tissue present in the ovule is called, first option embryo, second option funicle, third is nucellus, and the fourth is integuments. So the nutritive tissue present in the ovule is called, okay, and ovule is an integumented megasporangium that contains a typical ovule is having several structures like funicle, hilum, nucellus, embryo sac, and the integuments, right? So among all this, the nutritive tissue is the nucellus. So nucellus, it is nothing but a parenchymatous tissue that forms the body of the ovule. So the cells of this nucellus that contains a reserve food material. So generally it is a, so as the cells of this nucellus that contains a reserve food material. So it is a nutritive tissue which is present in the ovule. And funicle anta it is nothing but a stalk of the ovule with which it is attached to the placenta. And the integuments, the protective envelopes around the nucellus is called as integuments. So ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಇದಿಷ್ಟು ಆಪ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಟಿವ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ಯಾವ್ದಾಗತ್ತೆ? The nutritive tissue which is present in the ovule is called the nucellus. So the correct option is third one, nucellus. Next question. The most resistant organic material known which make up the most layer of a pollen wall is, first one lignin, second one pectin, third one is cellulose, fourth one is sporopolanin. So the most resistant organic material known which make up the most outermost layer of the pollen wall is, so you know that pollen grains are generally spherical in shape. The wall of the pollen grain is made up of 2 layers, right? The outermost layer ನಾವು exine ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. The inner layer is called as intine. So exine ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, the outermost layer of the pollen, so that is very hard and thick, and it is made up of sporopolanin. Okay, so this is the most resistant organic material now. Okay, so which is resistant to, it's a highly resistant material, and it is resistant to high temperature, which is resistant to strong acids and as well as the alkali. So till now, the no enzymes that degrade the sporopolanin are not known so far. Okay, so adana degrade ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ enzymes ಏನಿದೆ, they are not known so far. Okay, so such a it is highly resistant ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. So ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ highly resistant organic material ಯಾವುದಾಗತ್ತೆ? That is fourth option, sporopolanin. So the outermost covering of the pollen wall, that is exine, is made up of a highly resistant organic material, that is sporopolanin, which can withstand high temperature, strong acids and as well as the alkali. Okay, so the right option here is the fourth one. Then next question. The pollen grain represents male gamete. I'll read the question once again. The pollen grain represents, the first option is male gamete, second option is male gametophyte, the third option is microsporangium, and the fourth option is microsporophyte. So male gametophyte, ಸೊ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೇನ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮೇಲ್ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಂ ಆರ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಅಂತ. ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ ವಿಚ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೀಸ್ ದ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್. Okay, so here in angiosperms the male gametophyte represents the pollen grains, and the two gametes, no, the gametes are haploid which are developed inside the gametophyte. So hagagi pollen grain in angiosperms, the male gametophyte represents the pollen grains, no. So the pollen grain represents the male gametophyte that carries male gametes in it. So pollen grain is nothing, it is a male gametophyte which carries the two male gametes. Okay, so the right option here is the second one, that is the pollen grain represents male gametophyte. We'll move on to the next question. So this completes the botany questions, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Then we'll go for zoology. The chapter name is human reproduction. So in that, the first question is, colostrum is important for newly born because both it contains essential antigen and it contains essential antibodies. First option. It has more nutrients than ordinary milk. Third option is it contains essential antibodies. And the fourth option is it contains essential antigen. Okay. So you know that colostrum. Colostrum is the first milk which is secreted during initial few days of lactation. So that is very rich in antibodies. And the type of antibodies present in colostrum is anti-A antibodies. So these antibodies will fight against pathogenicity and will protect the newborn egg, right? So that will provide immunity to the newborn egg. So the doctor will usually suggest not to miss the first few days of breastfeeding, because it is called as that milk which is secreted during these days, no, that is called as colostrum, which is rich in anti-A antibodies. So that will provide immunity to the newly born baby. Okay, so colostrum is important for newly born because it contains essential antibodies. So the right option here is the third one. Move on to the next question. Sertoli cells are involved in, first option is excretion, second option is development of sex organs, third option is nutrition of sperms, and the fourth option is respiration. So here Sertoli cells are involved in anta kelidare avaru. Sertoli cells elli irutte, ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀರಾ ಜನರಲಿ Sertoli cells? So Sertoli cells are the long conical cells which are present in the germinal epithelium of the seminiferous tubules of the testis. So another type of cells present in the same germinal epithelium are the spermatogonia. They are diploid and they are the sperm forming cells. So in between the spermatogonia we will find this long cells that is called as Sertoli cells. The main function is it will provide nourishment to the developing sperms. So Sertoli cells main function ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ that will provide nutrition to the developing sperms. So they are involved in they have given four options here: excretion, second one is development of sex organs, third one is nutrition of the sperms, and the third one is respiration. So hagadre right option here is the third one, that is nutrition of sperms. Then we will move on to next question. Testes are extra abdominal in position. Which of the following is the most appropriate reason? First option, narrow pelvis in males. Second option, prostate gland and seminal vesicles occupy a maximum space. Third option is special protection for testes. And 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the normal body temperature. Okay. So you know that testes in human males, the testes are where they are located. They are located outside the abdomen in a pouch that is called as scrotum. So they will descend into the scrotum during the 7th month of the fetal life. Okay. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಇನ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಮೇಲ್ಸ್ ದ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಸ್ ಆರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾ ಅಬ್ಡೋಮಿನಲ್. ಓಕೆ, ದೇ ಡಿಸೆಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ಸ್ಕ್ರೋಟಮ್ during the 7th month of the fetal life. So they are located in a pouch like structure that is called as the scrotum. Okay, so why they will descend into the scrotum? Because the scrotum that will maintains the low temperature of the testis. Usually it maintains that is the normal temperature of the testis. It is 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the body temperature, because the normal spermatogenesis process, that is sperm formation process, that requires a little lesser temperature than the body temperature. That is 2 to the normal spermatogenesis process requires 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lesser temperature than the normal body temperature. So that is the reason the testes are extra abdominal. That means they are located outside the abdomen in a pouch that is called as scrotum. So that scrotum will help in maintaining the low temperature of the testis, so which is necessary for the normal spermatogenesis process. Okay, so the right option here is the fourth one, that is 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the normal body temperature. All options, narrow pelvis in males, prostate gland and seminal-vesicle occupy a maximum space. So that's why the testes are extra abdominal anta helidare, special protection anta helidare. But the correct reason is to provide a lower, lesser temperature for the normal spermatogenesis process. The testes are extra abdominal. Okay, next question. Second maturation division of mammalian ovum occurs. First option is until the nucleus of the sperm has fused with that of the ovum, until after the ovum has been penetrated by the sperm, shortly after ovulation, before the ovum makes entry into the fallopian tube, in the Graafian follicle, following the first maturation division. These are the four options they have given. Second maturation division anta helidre, that is second meiosis division. Okay, so second meiosis cell division. So once the secondary oocyte forms, okay, so the primary oocyte will complete its first meiosis in the tertiary follicle. So that results in the formation of first polar body, and another one is a larger cell that is called a secondary oocyte. So that secondary oocyte will start its second meiotic cell division, but it will not complete its second meiosis. Okay, but it get arrested. Alli arrest agirutte andre, that is in the metaphase second of meiosis 2. The secondary oocyte, it will enter the meiosis cell division, but it get temporarily arrested. Okay, so at the metaphase second of meiosis second. So when the secondary oocyte will complete its second meiosis cell division. So this second meiosis cell division, the secondary oocytes completes its second meiosis after the entry of sperm into the cytoplasm of the egg. Okay, so the acrosome of the sperm that contains sperm lysins enzymes that will help the sperm to penetrate into the cytoplasm of the secondary oocyte. So that entry of sperm into the secondary oocyte, cytoplasm of the secondary oocyte, induces the secondary oocyte to complete its second meiosis cell division. Okay, so hagadre second maturation division yavaga complete agate? After the entry of sperm. Okay, so here the question is, second maturation division of the mammalian ovum occurs until nucleus of the sperm has fused with that of the ovum. It's not right. Until after the ovum has been penetrated by the sperm. So second maturation division occurs until after the ovum has been penetrated by the sperm. Entry of sperm induces the secondary oocyte to complete its second meiosis. So the right option here is the second one, until after the ovum has been penetrated by the sperm. Next question. The sex of the fetus will be decided yet. First option, fertilization by female gamete. Second option is implantation. Third is the start of cleavage. And the fourth is fertilization by male gamete. Let us see the answer. The sex of the fetus will be decided yet. Fertilization by female gamete, implantation, start of cleavage, fertilization by male gamete. So you know that in human beings, the males are heterogametic, right? So the two sex chromosomes present in males are X and Y chromosomes. Okay. So as two sex chromosomes are present, that is X and Y chromosomes, the males are heterogametic anta helbodu because they produces two types of gametes. That is one of the gametes, half of the gametes no, they contain X chromosome and remaining of the gametes they contain Y chromosome. But females are homogametic. The sex chromosomes are present in human females are X and X. Okay, they have two sex chromosomes. The two sex chromosomes in females are the X chromosomes. So they produce only one type of egg or ovum, all containing X chromosome. So here the sex of the fetus, whether it is male or whether it is a female, that will be decided only at the time of fertilization. Okay, so suppose if the X chromosome containing sperm, okay, the sperm containing X chromosome fuses with fertilizes the egg, that results in a female baby. Suppose if the sperm carrying Y chromosome fertilizes the egg or the ovum, that results in the male baby. That forms X and Y chromosome, no? So that results in the male baby. So the sex of the fetus is decided at the time of fertilization only. Okay, so the question here is the sex of the fetus will be decided at fertilization by female gamete, implantation, the start of cleavage, fertilization by male gamete. So the sex of the fetus will be decided at the time of fertilization by male gamete. Okay, that is the right answer. Then next question, let's see the next question. Which one of the following is not a function of placenta? So you know that, let me read the options first. First option they have given secretes estrogen. Second one facilitates the supply of oxygen and nutrients to the embryo. Third option is secretes oxytocin during parturition. The fourth option is facilitates the removal of carbon dioxide and waste materials from the embryo. So here placenta, you know that it is a organic connection between the developing fetus and the mother. So this placenta is formed by the close interdigitation of chorionic villi with the uterine tissue. Okay, so that forms that develop as a placenta, and it is mainly meant for the physiological exchange. Okay, so that placenta will provide both nutrients and oxygen to the developing fetus, and it will also remove, it is meant for physiological exchange, no? It will also remove the waste materials that are produced in the developing fetus and also the carbon dioxide. Apart from that, the placenta will also act as an endocrine gland, alva. So it secretes for important hormones like HCG, HPL, estrogen and progesterone. So here four options they have given, right? They secretes estrogen anta kottidare first option. So that is correct only because it secretes estrogen. And second option is facilitates the supply of oxygen and nutrients to the embryo. Of course, it will provide oxygen and nutrients to the developing embryo. Third option is secrete oxytocin during parturition. So this is the wrong option. This is not a function of placenta. It's a function of hypothalamus. So this oxytocin hormone, no, it is produced by the hypothalamus and it is released into the blood circulation by posterior pituitary. So secretion of oxytocin during parturition is not a function of placenta, but it's a function of hypothalamus. And the fourth option is facilitates the removal of carbon dioxide and waste material from the embryo. Of course, it will remove the carbon dioxide and the waste materials which are developed are formed in the embryo. So fourth option is also correct. So which of the following function is not a function of which of the following is not a function of placenta? That is, it secretes oxytocin during parturition anta kottidare. So that is not a function of placenta. So the option, correct option here is third one. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Identify the correct statement on inhibin. 4 options now given. It is produced by granulosa cells in the ovary and inhibits the secretion of LH. Second option, it is produced by nerve cells in the testis and inhibits the secretion of LH. It is produced by granulosa cells in the ovary and inhibits the secretion of FSH. Fourth option, it inhibits the secretion of LH, FSH and prolactin. So inhibin. So inhibin hormone here they are given, it is produced by granulosa cells in ovary, inhibits the secretion of LH, produced by the nerve cells in the testis and inhibits the secretion of LH. It is produced by the granulosa cells in the ovary. It inhibits the secretion of FSH. Okay, so it inhibits the secretion of LH and FSH and prolactin ಅಂತ 4 options ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. So here inhibin ಏನಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? So that inhibin it is secreted by the granulosa cells in the ovary. Okay, so the main role anta helidre here. See, during each menstrual cycle, only one secondary oocyte is released from one of the two ovaries. No, so during each menstrual cycle, under the influence of follicular stimulating hormone, nearly 20 follicles will begin to develop, and after 20 follicles, only one of the dominant follicle, ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ, so that will grow and develop into a mature Graafian follicle. Remaining follicles, no, all remaining follicles will degenerate. Okay, then only one dominant follicle will grow and mature to develop to form a mature Graafian follicle. And this that granulosa cells of the dominant follicle, no, that will secrete a hormone that is called as inhibin. So here inhibin is secreted to check the further growth of follicles. Okay, so ಇಲ್ಲಿ inhibin main function ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, so it will prevent the further growth of the follicles, because during each menstrual cycle only one secondary oocyte is released from one of the two ovaries. No, so to check the further growth of the follicles in the ovary, the granulosa cells of the dominant follicle will secrete the inhibin. So the right option ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, it is produced by granulosa cells in the ovary and inhibits the secretion of which hormone? FSH hormone, to prevent the further growth of follicles. So it is produced by nerve cells in the testis. Subtotal cells will also release inhibin, but it inhibits, it is released to check the overactivity of the FSH, but not the secretion of LH. So second option kuda wrong agate. So third option is the right option. It is produced by granulosa cells in the ovary and inhibits the secretion of FSH. Okay, we move on to the next question. The shared terminal duct of the reproductive and urinary system in the human male is? First option, vasa efferentia. Second option is vas deferens. Third option is urethra, and the fourth option is ureter. So the shared terminal duct of reproductive and urinary system in human male is, so you know that in human males, the urethra, it provides a common exit. Okay, so it will provide an exit for the urine from the urinary bladder and as well as the semen from the vas deferens, right? So it is a common pathway for the passage of both urine and as well as the semen. So the shared terminal duct of the reproductive and urinary system in the human male is the urethra. It is a common passage for both urine and as well as the semen. Okay, so the right option here is the third one, that is urethra. The shared terminal duct of the male, the shared terminal duct of the reproductive and the urinary system in the human male is the urethra. Third option is correct. Then next question. What is the correct sequence of sperm formation? So sperm formation, and that is a process of spermatogenesis. So 4 options are given. First option is spermatogonia, then spermatocyte, spermatid, spermatozoa. Then second option is spermatid, spermatozoa, spermatocyte, spermatogonia and spermatozoa. Third option is spermatogonia, spermatocyte, spermatozoa, spermatid. Fourth option is spermatogonia, spermatozoa, spermatocyte and the spermatid. Four options they have given here. So what is the right option? Sperm formation, the process of sperm formation or spermatogenesis process. Okay, it is carried out in the seminiferous tubules of the testis by the spermatogonial cells, okay, which are present in the germinal epithelium of the seminiferous tubules, right? So that spermatogonial cells, they undergo repeated mitotic division and forms, they increase in number, result in more number of spermatogonia. And some of the spermatogonia, in that some of the spermatogonia, they continue to divide, that is mitotic division continues. But some other spermatogonia, no, they will enter into the growth phase where they grow and increase in size to form a primary spermatocyte. Then the primary spermatocytes undergoes meiosis cell division. First they undergoes meiosis first, and that results, that is a reductional division, that gives rise to the primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis first and gives rise to the secondary spermatocyte. Then the secondary spermatocyte undergoes second meiosis and produces a spermatid. Okay, so 4 spermatids are formed, and so from each primary spermatocyte 4 spermatids are formed, and these spermatids, they transform themselves into spermatozoa. Okay, so the correct sequence yavadaಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ spermatogonia, later the spermatocytes, then spermatid, then spermatozoa alva. So first option, what they have given, spermatogonia, that is correct only. Spermatocyte, what should come after spermatogonia? Spermatocytes, because the spermatogonia, it will forms the primary spermatocyte, okay, that gives rise to that undergoes meiosis first and gives rise to secondary spermatocytes, no. So the spermatocyte should come after spermatogonia, and it's followed by the secondary spermatocyte upon second maturation division, meiosis second division, that gives rise to spermatids. So third spermatid ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, that is the correct, and the spermatids will transform themselves into spermatozoa alva. So the first option is correct only here. So spermatogonia, then spermatocyte, spermatid and spermatozoa. What they have given in the second option? Spermatid. No. So the spermatid are the cells which are formed due to the second meiosis of secondary spermatocytes. Okay. So what should come first here? Spermatogonia should come first, but the spermatid they have given alva. So this is the wrong option. Third option is spermatogonia. Of course, that is, it begins with spermatogonia and then spermatocyte, that is correct, and it is followed by, they are given spermatozoa. So what should come here in place of spermatozoa? The spermatid, because the secondary spermatocytes gives rise to spermatids, no, the spermatids should come first, then spermatozoa alva. So third option is also wrong. Fourth option is spermatogonia, and after that they have given spermatozoa, so which are formed at the end of spermatogenesis process. So they should come last after spermatocyte and spermatid. Okay, so the right option here is the first option, that is spermatogonia, spermatocyte, spermatid and spermatozoa. Okay, next question. Which of the following layers in an antral follicle is acellular? Antral follicle, that's the mature Graafian follicle. What are the different types of cells in that? The first option they have given zona pellucida. Second option they have given theca interna. Third option they have given granulosa, and the fourth option they have given stroma. So of all this, and which of the following layers in a follicle, antral follicle, is acellular? So it's having granulosa cells, cellular layers, that stromal cells, okay, and also the theca interna, theca externa, theca interna, all these are cellular layers. But zona pellucida is a non-cellular layer. It is a glycoproteinaceous layer that will cover the plasma membrane of the mammalian oocyte. Okay, so among these, the acellular layer is zona pellucida. Which of the following layers in an antral follicle is acellular? That is the first option, zona pellucida. Okay, so first option is correct here. The next question. Capacitation occurs in. First option is epididymis. Second option is vas deferens. Third option is rete testis. Fourth option is female reproductive tract. So capacitation occurs in epididymis. So what is capacitation first? So capacitation anta helidre, it is nothing but the activation of the sperms or final maturation of the sperm which enable the sperm to fertilize the egg. See, the freshly ejaculated sperms, no, they are unable to fertilize the egg. Okay, so they have to be made active for fertilization to take place. So such a process of activation of the sperms is called as capacitation. So that capacitation process takes place in the female reproductive tract. So during which what happens? The secretions of the female reproductive tract, no? So that secretions of the female reproductive tract will act on the sperms and they remove the coating substances what present on the plasma membrane of the sperm, particularly on the actosome. Okay, so that process of activation of sperms, so that will enable the sperm to fertilize the egg. Okay, so that is the final maturation of the sperms. That process is called as capacitation. So that occurs within the female reproductive tract. So the right option here is capacitation occurs in epididymis, vas deferens, rete testis and female reproductive tract. So where it occurs? Capacitation. So it occurs in the female reproductive tract alva. So the right option here is fourth one. Then we'll move on to next question. The correct sequence of male accessory glands pouring their secretions into urethra. The first one is prostate gland. Second one is bulbourethral glands. Third one is seminal vesicle. Second option is seminal vesicle, prostate gland, bulbourethral glands. Third is prostate gland, seminal vesicle, bulbourethral glands and bulbourethral glands. Fourth option is bulbourethral glands, prostate gland and seminal vesicle. So, the correct sequence of male accessory glands. So, you know that male accessory glands include a pair of seminal vesicle, a single prostate gland, a pair of bulbourethral gland. Okay. So, the secretion of all the three accessory glands will provide a media for the transport of the sperm salva. So, the secretion of all these three accessory glands, it is together with the sperm is called as, we call it as a semen, right? Okay, so the secretion of all these glands will provide a media for the transport of the sperms. So what is the correct sequence of male accessory glands? So the first accessory glands is a pair of seminal vesicle. Okay, then a pair of seminal vesicle is followed by a single prostate gland. Then that is followed by a pair of bulbourethral glands. So the correct sequence of male accessory glands pouring their secretions into urethra is, the first is a seminal vesicle. What comes first? Seminal vesicles will come first, no? So the correct sequence of accessory glands pouring their secretion into urethra, that includes seminal vesicle, prostate gland, then bulbourethral glands. Okay, so the right option is second one. Next question. Which of the following cells during gametogenesis is normally diploid? First one is second polar body. Second one is spermatogonia. Third one is ovum and fourth one is spermatid. So which of the following cells during gametogenesis is normally diploid anta kelidare. So alli yavudagatte hagadre second polar body. So the second polar body is produced as a result of second maturation division of the secondary oocyte, that is a meiosis second division, no. So meiosis cell division andre first division aguvaga meiosis first aguvaga enagirutte chromosome number is reduced to half alva. So hagagi second polar body it is haploid only. Then spermatogonia. So spermatogonia are the sperm forming cells and this gives rise to the sperms, no. So they are diploid only because they undergo meiosis cell division to produce the male gametes, haploid male gametes, that is the sperms. So the spermatogonia are diploid. And ovum. Ovum is the result of the second maturation division of the secondary oocyte. It's a result of meiosis cell division along. So it is haploid only. And spermatid. So spermatid is also These are also the cells which are formed as a result of meiosis cell division or reductional cell division. So these are spermatids are also haploid. So second polar body, ovum and spermatid are haploid, and only diploid cells in these options is spermatogonia, that is the second one. So the right option here is second one. Next question. Several hormones like HCG, HPL, estrogen, progesterone are produced by. First option is fallopian tube, second option is placenta, third option is ovary, and the fourth option is pituitary. So here several hormones like HCG, HPL, estrogen and progesterone. So I already discussed this. So they are secreted by fallopian tube, placenta, ovary and pituitary. See, you know that placenta is an organic connection. It is formed. It is mainly formed for physiological exchange between the developing fetus and the mother, right? So apart from that, it also acts as endocrine gland. So the placenta which is formed during pregnancy, it will also act as endocrine gland by secreting some hormones during pregnancy. Okay, so the hormones which are formed during the pregnancy by the placenta, that includes HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotropin, HPL, that is human placental lactogen, estrogen they have given, and progesterone also they have given. So all these four hormones during pregnancy are produced by the placenta. Okay, the next question. So which is the right option here? Option second is correct. Next question. Select the correct sequence for transport of sperm cells in the male reproductive system. First option they have given testis, followed by epididymis, vasa efferentia, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, inguinal canal, urethra and urethral meatus. The second option they have given here is seminiferous tubules. Second one is retate testis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra and urethral meatus. Third option is seminiferous tubules, vasa efferentia, epididymis, inguinal canal, urethra. Fourth option is testis, epididymis, vasa efferentia, retate testis, inguinal canal and urethra. So you know that where sperm formation takes place. Sperm formation takes place in the seminiferous tubules of the testis by spermatogonial cells. So once they are produced in the that is seminiferous tubules, they make their way through various accessory ducts of male reproductive system that begins with retate testis, then followed by vasa efferentia, then followed by epididymis, then vas deferens. So the vas deferens will enter into the abdomen and it will take a loop, okay, or the urinary bladder, and it will join with the duct of the seminal vesicle, and it will continue forward as a ejaculatory duct, and that will opens into urethra. Okay, so this is the male accessory ducts starting from retate testis. Okay, so here select the correct sequence for transport of sperm cells in the male reproductive system. First option what they have given, testis they have given. Later on they have given epididymis. So this will be wrong. Why? Because sperm's production takes place in the seminiferous tubules. So once they're formed in the seminiferous tubules, they will enter into the retate testis. Tubuli recti bharatha, then retate testis bharatha. Tubuli recti they have not given here. So we'll directly go with the retate testis. So second option or now, second optionally what they have given, seminiferous tubules, retate testis, vasa efferentia. Of course, it is correct. Then it is followed by epididymis, then vas deferens, then ejaculatory duct, then urethra and urethral meatus. This is the correct sequence of transport of sperm cells in the male reproductive system. So, from seminiferous tubules to rete testis, then vasa efferentia, then epididymis, then vas deferens, then ejaculatory duct, and then finally it enters as the ejaculatory duct will open into the urethra. So the next is the urethra, and finally to outside through the urethral meatus. So second option is correct. Third option nodadadre. So third option what they have given. So after seminiferous tubules, immediately they have given vasa efferentia, right? So what should come here after seminiferous tubule? Rete testis must come along. So this option is wrong. And fourth option is the testis epididymis. Here also they have directly gone to epididymis. So what should come first? Seminiferous tubules, then rete testis, then vasa efferentia, then epididymis. So this will also be wrong. So this is also wrong. So the right one here is second option. So select the correct sequence for transport of sperm cells in the male reproductive system is the second option: seminiferous tubules, rete testis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra and urethral meatus. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. The extrusion of second polar body from egg nucleus occurs. The first option is simultaneously with the first cleavage, after fertilization. Third option is after entry of sperm but before fertilization. Fourth option is before entry of sperm into the ovum. So extrusion of second polar body from the egg nucleus occurs. So yavaga agate. So the release of secondary polar body from the egg nucleus. So second polar body is a result of second maturation division of the secondary oocyte. So that second maturation division of secondary oocyte will complete only after the entry of sperm into the cytoplasm of the secondary oocyte. So that entry of sperm induces the secondary oocyte to complete its second meiosis, right? So the second maturation division is unequal division that results in the formation of a tiny polar body, that is the second polar body, and another one is the large functional oocyte or the ovum. So extrusion of second polar body from the egg nucleus occurs when it occurs after the entry, because second maturation will come, division will complete after the entry of sperm into the ovum. No, so extrusion of second polar body from egg nucleus occurs after entry of sperm but before fertilization. So the right option here is the third one. Extrusion of second polar body from egg nucleus occurs after the entry of sperm but before fertilization. Then we'll move on to the next question. Signals for parturition originate from. First option, fully developed fetus only. Second option, oxytocin released from the maternal pituitary. Third option, placenta only. Fourth option, both placenta as well as fully developed fetus. So signals for parturition. Parturition andre, what is the meaning of parturition? Definition of parturition. It is nothing but the process of expulsion of fully developed fetus out of the mother womb is called as what? Parturition. So in short, formally ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದಂದ್ರೆ it is the process of the delivery of the baby. Okay. So it is induced by neuroendocrine mechanism. The signals for parturition will originate from the fully developed fetus and as well as placenta. So the signals for parturition will originate both by placenta and as well as the fully developed fetus, which produces a mild uterine contraction that is called as a fetal ejection reflex. It will stimulate the secretion of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary. Okay, so the stimulatory reflex of oxytocin and uterine contraction will continue until vigorous uterine contractions are produced. Until ಎಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ continue ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, it will continue up to the stronger and stronger uterine contractions are produced. So that results in the expulsion of the fully developed fetus. That results in the delivery. Okay. So for parturition, the signals originate from both placenta and as well as fully developed fetus. Okay, so the right option here is fourth option. So fourth option is correct here. The next question. In a normal pregnant woman, the amount of total gonadotropin activity was assessed. The expected was high levels of circulating HCG to stimulate estrogen and progesterone synthesis. Second one, high levels of circulating HCG to stimulate endometrial thickening. Third one, high levels of FSH and LH in uterus to stimulate endometrial thickening. Fourth one, high levels of circulating FSH and LH in the uterus to stimulate implantation of the embryo. Okay. So, question is, in a normal pregnant woman, the amount of total gonadotropin activity was assessed. The expected was, in a pregnant woman, there will be a high level of circulating HCG, that is a human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. So, this is a placental hormone. So, once this hormone is produced, that is synthesized, so it will take over the function of LH. So, the function of LH is to stimulate the corpus luteum to secrete the estrogen and as well as the progesterone, because the corpus luteum will secrete more amount of progesterone and it will also secrete some amount of estrogen also. Okay, so once the HCG synthesis occurs, once the secretion of HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotropin takes place, so that will take over the function of LH. So it stimulates the corpus luteum to produce the progesterone and as well as the estrogen. So the right option here is, in the normal pregnant woman, there is a high level of circulating HCG to stimulate estrogen and progesterone synthesis. Okay, so the first option is correct here. So the right option here is first one. The next question. Hormones of menstrual cycle are produced by, first option, ovaries only, both ovaries and anterior pituitary, uterus only, and fourth option is ovaries and uterus. So menstrual cycle. So what are all the hormones involved in menstrual cycle? That includes FSH. ಯಾವ hormones ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ menstrual cycle ಅಲ್ಲಿ? It requires for follicular development, it requires FSH and LH. And LH rapid that is over secretion, that is rapid secretion of LH is also required for ovulation during the middle of the menstrual cycle, and for the thickening of endometrium that requires estrogen hormone, and progesterone for maintaining of that endometrium. Okay, so these are all the hormones which are required for menstrual cycle. So that is FSH, LH, estrogen and progesterone. So among all the four hormones, the FSH and LH hormones are produced by anterior pituitary, whereas the estrogen is produced by the granulosa, that is granulosa cells of the ovary, and progesterone is produced by the corpus luteum. And of course corpus luteum will also secrete some amount of a little estrogen also. So here the hormones of menstrual cycle are produced by both ovaries and as well as the anterior pituitary. So the ovarian hormones include estrogen and progesterone, anterior pituitary hormones include FSH and LH. Okay, so the hormones for menstrual cycles are produced by both ovaries and as well as anterior pituitary. Then next question. Fertilization in humans is practically feasible only if the sperms are transported into the vagina just after the release of ovum in the fallopian tube. Second option, the sperms are transported into cervix within 48 hours of release of ovum in the uterus. And third one is the ovum and the sperms are transported to ampullary isthmic junction of the cervix. Fourth option is the ovum and sperms are transported simultaneously to ampulla region of the fallopian tube. So, fertilization in humans is practically feasible only if the sperms are transported into vagina just after the release of ovum in the fallopian tube ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. See, fertilization ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ it is nothing but the process of fusion of haploid male and the female gamete, right? So in human beings, the fertilization is internal and it takes place. Where exactly the fertilization in humans takes place? It is in the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. Okay, and this fertilization is practically feasible. So fertilization takes place. Suppose once the sperms are ejaculated into the vagina of the female, so they make their way towards the fertilization site, that is the ampulla region of the fallopian tube, right? So they passes through the cervix, they enter the uterus, and finally they reach the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. So by the time the ovum which is released by the ovary is also transported to the fertilization site, that is the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. And this fertilization takes place only when the sperm and the ovum are transported simultaneously to the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. Okay, so ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ right option is fertilization in humans is practically feasible only if the ovum and sperms are transported simultaneously to ampulla region of the fallopian tube. So fourth option ಅವರು correct ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ because first option is wrong, that is sperms are transported into vagina ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So for fertilization to take place, the sperms has to reach the ampulla region and the sperms are transported into cervix within 48 hours of release of ovum and the uterus. So again same here, they have to reach the ampulla site, ampulla region of fallopian tube, and ovum and sperms are transported to ampullary isthmic junction of cervix anta helidare. So but fertilization takes place, it will not take place in the ampullary isthmic junction, but it takes place in the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. So the fourth option, the ovum and sperms are transported simultaneously to ampulla region of the fallopian tube. So hagadre right option here is the fourth one. The ovum and sperms are transported simultaneously to ampulla region of the fallopian tube. Okay, so the right option here is the fourth one. Okay, so this completes all the questions. I will end up this session now. Bye students, take care.